I'll say this. I wasn't kidding about what I said, even if we were laughing about how this was a great opening week for the NBA. There are reasons for why the NBA feels refreshed and renewed. And Ryan and I are going to get into those reasons. I think their new media alliances serve them well. The games were great, but this, Ryan, this is a mess. This is a goddamn mess. And while we're going to say allegedly with everything, and we can't just take the government's indictment as gospel, which do you think is worse? I think the Chauncey Billups,
Oh,
the Chauncey Billups. The
the
Chauncey
Billups thing
Billups
is
is worse.
definitely worse. First of all, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame player, an NBA champion, and an administrator as a coach. I think he's an adult. The like Terry Rozier, I don't know exactly how old he is. He's probably late 20s, but
Mm.
early 30s. But it's a little bit different with you treat the players differently than the coaches. And I mean, I think what Billups has done also seems to have had a much wider scope. And so I mean, I guess what do you want to get into first?
Okay, let's get into this. We're saying allegedly with everything here. Allegedly, 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 allegedly. As hard as that is to say three times fast. It would appear on the surface, if you read between the lines and look over the indictment, that there's a lot of reason to believe that Chauncey Billups was engaged in fixing games as a coach for the purposes of these unsavory actors betting on it. I feel as though if something like this had happened 10 years ago when we were more rocked by scandal and when there weren't all these gambling companies involved in the leagues and the corporations covering the leagues, this would just be the biggest story of the year. And I wouldn't expect it to
Let's
go away
step
in a
back
week.
in case people don't know, because this actually didn't make as many headlines as the poker game and what Rozier did,
Yeah, it's less
because it
colorful.
kind of was like, it was described as a co-conspirator eight in the indictment, and co-conspirator eight was described as someone whose career basically has matched all of Chauncey Billups's. So it like let's just for even allegedly, like I think this is
It's
him,
Chauncey, by
and
the way. I know
so
that
what
much.
he what
Yeah.
he's accused of in there is basically pulling the starters, like just load managing them in a game against the Bulls in 2023. And by the way, I think it was like the day before the Terry Rozier incident. So these two things happen on back-to-back days. And telling a gambler in advance that he was going to be sitting the starters, and then the gambler could then act on the information and bet on the Bulls before this is public. And so, yeah, what Ethan said, he is accused of fixing a game essentially. Now, here's why another reason, like other than the fact that we become desensitized to gambling and desensitized to scandal, here's another reason why this isn't like the nuclear warhead what that you might have expected. We've been desensitized to the idea of NBA franchises deliberately throwing games for the
Mm.
purposes of like quote competition reasons of tanking to get a better draft pick. And so the fact that like this would kind of be normal in the day-to-day NBA business, like, okay, we're the Blazers, we want to be get more ping pong balls or however they do it in the lottery. We're gonna sit Damian Lillard in this game late in the season and lose. That's been normal for a long time. And so that's something we've been pounding our fist on the table about, the tanking and the load managing, where teams that aren't out of it are keeping stars on the sidelines to try and like preserve them for the postseason or whatever. And so you have this double-edged sword where all these teams are not taking these regular season games seriously, yet they are being bet on in large numbers. But like just the fact that the NBA has been so laissez-faire about its actual competition for so many years has made us be like, oh yeah, of course they would do this. Like, why wouldn't they?
I feel horrible because that's such a great point by you. And why you're the preeminent sports media critic to correct your French pronunciation of is it Laissez-faire, laissez-faire. Now, I don't know. Now I'm losing confidence in my ability to pronounce that term. That's a great point. The tanking is this anti-competitive phenomenon that provides cover for shady acting. Now, I'll say this because we can get into the colorful poker cheating. I didn't even know the mafia was still a force in American life. I'm shocked by all of it. When it came to game fixing, shaving points, I always thought about players that the Jonte Porter might do a thing like that. That was on my realm of possibilities. That was on my board. It never occurred to me that a coach might be involved in something like this. It never did because I always
think if it
assumed
was a coach, it would be someone who has made a lot less money than Chauncey Billups. Like so Mark Daigneault, great coach. Not accusing him of any type of anti-competitive, but he has not made a lot of money in his life.
the man can't afford a haircut. We can all see it. Brilliant coach.
Like, there's like different like kind of classes of these coaches. Like, yeah, Eric Spoelstra, now that he's won a lot, makes a lot of money, but like there's a pretty wide range. I mean, some of these guys might make low seven figures, right? And so, like someone who is like, or even an assistant coach who's privy to this knowledge, there's lots of those people on the end of the bench who could supply this information to gamblers, and we'd be a lot more kind of or less awed by it. But the fact that it's like Chauncey Billups, who made $100 million as a player, is making $5 million a year as a coach, can get endorsement deals. I mean, this is a guy who should not be in need of whatever like you can get from fixing one NBA game, right? Like that, it doesn't seem like you could, unless you're like, and we don't know. Now we're getting into the reckless speculation game.
I got more.
Why would he do it? Like you would have to think for someone to do this that he would have to be in like substantial debt to people to even do something so like just reckless and dumb.
Indeed. It's something I couldn't have predicted. And I should add that if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. We can admit you to ask a question. It's mind blowing now, but it's a mess of an indictment on multiple fronts. The Terry Rozier one, I'm seeing reporters out of Miami saying that the Miami Heat have cause to be angry about it because they would have wanted Rozier's hefty contract to have perhaps been voided on the basis of this activity. And there's some feeling that the NBA was not forthcoming about what was happening and what was being
we're
discovered.
seeing like conflicting messages, like where like Brian Windhorst, who I think you and I both regard as
incredible,
the ultimate like beacon of like sifting through fact from fiction in this swamp of that is this like professional sports league, is they're all swamps, just like this specific swamp. He's great at kind of wading through and like galoshes and coming out with the information in its pure form. And so he said on the Rich Eisen show essentially yesterday that the NBA caught this the night it happened and shadow ban. I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said they caught it the night that it happened and shadow banned him for the rest of the year. Now, apparently that's been like walked back somewhat this morning. That's what I was like told, but I haven't seen a clip of him walking it back. I just saw, the first one is going to spread a lot more than after he gets called into the principal's office and clarifies it. And so, he said that. And so then at that offseason, the Heat traded for Rozier. Is that like the timeline?
I mean, my head is a jumble. That does sound like what happened, but I'm just trying to keep track of it all. By the way, I don't think they're going to get much sympathy. Terry Rozier, kind of a crazy, inefficient player, Scary Terry. The idea that I don't know. I just feel like nobody
they like I don't you know more about the things of these like trades than I do. So yeah, but we actually haven't said what he's accused of yet, in case anybody is somehow watching this and doesn't know. So
he's accused of the classic Jonte Porter of I take the under, or somebody who knows me takes the under. And in the indictment, it's to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars that were bet on it, I believe.
So Mays is saying he was traded midway through the following season in early 2024. The incident in question happened in 2023. Sports books all over the country noticed that there were irregular betting patterns on Rozier. I think the indictment says that like $200,000 were bet on his unders. That's a lot. I mean, look, so the way that there's going to be a lot of asides in this, but like the
Yeah.
way that a lot of like the sports betting book works is the point spread, the money line, the game over under total. Those are like, quote, liquid markets where there's a lot of betting on each side and they're pretty efficient markets. They give you higher limits on those. Player props are, used in parlays. Like if somebody makes a $1,000 bet on a point spread, it may not like trigger any type of control mechanism at a sports book. And if someone bets $1,000 on Terry Rozier under assists, that's something that they're gonna like. It's gonna trip an alarm bell, and they're gonna look at it. And so, all these books that night noticed that a lot of people were just hammering Rozier unders, and then 9 minutes into the game, he pulled himself out with like a dubious seeming injury. And so, the Heat are upset that they traded for him the following season and it wasn't like disclosed to them that he was under this scrutiny for what he's accused of doing, basically.
There's just so much. It's such a mess. This whole thing is such a mess.